The Switch 2 is finally here after 8 very long years, and it delivers meaningful improvements in performance, ergonomics, and new features while still honoring the hybrid appeal that made the original such a success. It's faster, more powerful, and it just straight up feels better to use. Yet it's not without its compromises. Most notably, the Switch 2 drops the gorgeous OLED display of its most recent predecessor in favor of a 1080p LCD. For those who already own a Switch OLED, the upgrade question actually may not be that simple, but for new buyers or anyone with a launch model Switch, the Switch 2 feels like the evolution that fans have been waiting for. So if you don't want to watch this review, I'll just put it simply for you. If you're after better performance, smoother gameplay, better ergonomics, and new features like game chat, the Switch 2 is already a worthy upgrade for most people, and you should just go ahead and pick one up. But there is more to this story than a buy or don't buy, especially coming from a PC-centric channel like mine. So we will get into the nitty-gritty and my personal thoughts after owning and using the Switch 2 every day for over a month. But first, you're going to need to grab some top-tier accessories for your Switch 2 from the sponsor of this video, JSOX. You finally picked up the Switch 2, and yeah, it's awesome. But you know what isn't? Dropping it on day 2 because you didn't pick up a case. Don't be that person. JSOX has a full line of accessories that actually make your setup better. I'm talking protective cases that still fit in the dock, racing grips that snap onto your Joy-Cons for games like Mario Kart, screen protectors, and tons of ways to keep your device clean, scratch-free, and safe. I've especially been enjoying this colorful case when I take the Switch 2 on the go. Hard on the outside, but super soft on the inside. And when I need to take my dock and a bunch of accessories with me, this bigger travel case makes sure everything gets there without sliding around in my backpack. JSOX has a reputation for making premium quality accessories for not only the Nintendo Switch 2, but for any handheld out there. So if you're looking to expand your Switch 2 experience, go to the link in the video description and check out everything they have to offer. And thanks to JSOX for sponsoring this video. Nintendo launched the original Switch in 2017. It kind of redefined what a gaming console could be, seamlessly blending handheld portability with home console power. Well, kind of. It was pretty underpowered for a home console even by 2017 standards. The Switch OLED in 2021 refined that formula with a bigger, brighter screen and subtle hardware tweaks, but the underlying silicon remained the same. Nevertheless, I really loved the Switch OLED. Now in 2025, the Switch 2 arrives with a generational leap in hardware. It boasts a custom NVIDIA Tegra T239 chip, upgraded memory, a redesigned dock, and Joy-Con 2 controllers with better ergonomics and improved reliability. The Switch 2 isn't trying to outperform the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, but it's aiming for a smoother, richer hybrid experience than its predecessor. Nintendo's bet that most of us want good performance and convenience in a console we can carry around. And that's never been more true since PC handhelds have started to become very popular in recent years. And just for reference, I only have my Switch OLED here to compare the Switch 2 with, so all comparisons will be done with that. So let's talk about the physical design of the Switch 2. It's slightly thicker and heavier than the OLED, but it feels much more sturdy. One thing I always hated about the original Switch was that it felt way too much like an actual toy. The kickstand, borrowed directly from the OLED, although missing some material, is still wide, super adjustable, and far better than the original Switch's stupid toothpick kickstand design. We've got all the expected ports and buttons on the console. Power button, volume up and down, 3.5mm headphone port, microSD express slot, game cartridge, and 2 USB-C ports. This is something that I realized I love on my Lenovo Legion Go handheld. Having a USB-C port on the top and bottom is frankly just awesome. You obviously need the bottom one so you can plug into the docking station. So what's the top one for? Well, if you ask Nintendo, they'll say it's for their new accessories like the webcam or whatever, but for me, it's primarily when you are plugged into the wall or a power bank. Playing in handheld mode this way, it's kind of awkward to have the cable coming out of the bottom and getting in the way. So now you can plug the cable into the top and get the same effect, but in a much more comfortable way. But yes, this port is still primarily for accessories like cameras or external storage. The Joy-Cons are so much better than the originals. I remember when the OG Switch was first announced and they showed those stupid sliding rails mechanism. Even at that time, I was like, couldn't they just use magnets? And thankfully, Nintendo must have heard that because that's exactly what they did. No more having to slide the rails perfectly on the Switch. They just snap on with absolute ease. And removing them is not a tiny little button anymore, You can easily just press the grip with one finger and pull the whole thing off with one hand. Such an amazing improvement. And because of this magnetic fit, they feel like they have a much tighter fit and makes the device just feel more premium. The Joy-Cons have a more rounded edge as well, which helps to have a better grip, as well as the L and R buttons being much, much bigger. Even just using the Joy-Con by itself feels way better than before. But I suppose that could mostly be because they are slightly bigger. The joysticks aren't Hall effect, which is a huge bummer, but let's just hope that there aren't any issues with stick drifting in the future. No way Nintendo can make the same mistake twice, right? That's a joke. They do. They do make the same mistake twice. A lot. I'd say the button and joysticks feel better and are a bit more responsive. Getting handed one of these things might not be an instant loss anymore. The new console features a nearly 8-inch 1080p LCD display. It's a jump in resolution over the OLED 720p screen, and while the Switch 2 screen does look pretty good, it's really hard to compete with an OLED screen directly. For me, I prefer having a larger and higher resolution screen over having an OLED. So why didn't they just make this an 8-inch 1080p OLED screen? Well, the cost would probably need to go up even more, and they need something to put into their midlife refresh in a few years. I took it on vacation with me and was able to play it outside in the sun with minimal issues on max brightness. I really love the bigger screen, and the colors on the new screen look fantastic, and even though it's not OLED, I still think it's a worthy successor. Under the hood, the Switch 2 is powered by that custom NVIDIA T239 chip with Ampere architecture, essentially bringing Switch up to par with something like the Steam Deck maybe, but in a much slimmer package. We're also getting 12 gigs of LP DDR5 RAM, up from only 4 on the original Switch, so a major upgrade there. The internal storage has also gotten an upgrade, with 256 gig internal, as well as being expandable via microSD Express. So you can't just stick whatever microSD card you want in here. It's got to be the faster microSD Express cards, which are considerably more expensive because there aren't many people making them yet. But I'm sure these prices will come down in the future. Don't feel compelled to run out and buy one day one. The 256 gigs of internal storage is more than enough to get you started on a ton of games. Speaking of games, the only real new game that the Switch 2 launched with was Mario Kart World, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Have we ever seen a new console launch with only one brand new game before? There are also a bunch of ports and upgrades of older games that you can play, Cyberpunk 2077 being one of them. They released it for the Switch 2, and it is a very optimized port that is specifically designed to run on the Switch 2. I didn't buy it because I already own it on Steam, but I've heard that it runs pretty well on the new hardware. Mario Kart World also runs like a dream. The game is really fun, and I never experienced any slowdowns while playing it. This is in stark contrast to the original Switch. The Switch 1 originally launched with Breath of the Wild, which is even to this day still kind of considered the best game on that console, but it seriously ran like ass. It could barely do 720p 30 FPS, with constant drop downs to 20 or even 15 FPS at times. I love Breath of the Wild, but I never played the sequel Tears of the Kingdom, and I never went back to play the original a second time because it honestly was just a really bad playable experience. But the Switch 2 is fully backwards compatible and even offers upgraded performance on a lot of its old games, at a small cost of course. But even so, I paid the $10 to upgrade my old copies of Zelda, and holy crap, it's actually so good. 1080p and a locked 60 FPS. Look at the difference between these two. It is night and day. This upgrade took the prospect of playing Tears of the Kingdom from, maybe I'll get around to it someday, to I really want to play this right now. And that's a great feeling to have when talking about a device that is supposed to bring you joy and not dread. Oh, and Metroid Dread runs pretty good too, because we're talking about Dread, Metroid Dread. Both Zelda game upgrades run amazingly well on the Switch 2, and it honestly has me finally excited to play through them. It sucks that you have to pay extra, either through the upgraded Nintendo Switch Online membership or a la carte, but hey, Nintendo gonna Nintendo, right? The Switch 2 is fully backwards compatible with both physical and digital Switch 1 games, with a lot of older titles running better on the new device without any kind of paid upgrade. Now, if you prefer to play in docked mode, you can expect even more performance actually. The dock has a new design and some new features as well. We finally get native 4K output via HDMI 2.1, which is enabled by DLSS upscaling, thank you NVIDIA, built-in Ethernet port just like the Switch OLED dock, and two USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, which allows for faster data transfer for accessories. The dock is also slightly larger and heavier to better accommodate heat dissipation during high-performance gaming. and it has a sleeker matte design with a more durable hinge and improved airflow. Playing in docked mode, you obviously don't have to worry about battery life, but for the rest of us, the Switch 2 features a 5220 mAh battery, which is slightly larger than the OLED's 4310, but that's definitely not the whole story. So my wife plays our Switch OLED about 50 times more than I do, so when the Switch 2 first came in, I let her have dibs on it and asked her to give me her thoughts. She has been playing the Switch OLED exclusively since it came out, and funnily enough, the first thing she told me after playing the Switch 2 for a few days was, "I think there's something wrong with the battery," telling me that it wasn't even lasting a few hours. This was in pretty stark contrast to what she was used to on the OLED. Due to its more efficient screen and lower performance, she was able to play a lot of games for 5 or more hours sometimes without worrying about charging. Now, battery performance is going to vary wildly, depending on the game, your brightness settings, etc. Obviously, Stardew Valley at 720p, 30 FPS is going to play much longer than Mario Kart World running at 1080p 60. So while yes, we do get better performance on the Switch 2, it comes at a price. Here are some preliminary numbers from Nintendo Life's testing on the Switch 2's battery life. I'll be sure to link in the description if you want more info on the matter, but just from looking at their numbers, it paints a very clear picture. Playing AAA games on the Switch 2 will kill your battery in around 2 to 2.5 hours, which is not great, especially compared to the more efficient Switch OLED. So if you're going on an extended flight, be sure to bring a power bank with you. It should be able to charge the Switch a couple of times before fully dying. As for me, the battery life hasn't been that big of an issue, but that's mostly because there aren't really any times where I want to play for sessions of more than 2 hours at a time. I'm more of a play for 30 to 90 minutes and take a break kind of guy, but I always keep a power bank on me as well, so it wouldn't be the end of the world. I've had a great time playing Mario Kart World on this thing, but also going back and playing a bunch of Switch 1 games I've been putting off. It's no longer, I have to play that on Switch. I'm actually excited to play my Switch for the first time in years, and that's a great feeling. I would go as far as to say that other than the lack of OLED, the Switch 2 is better in every conceivable way. It's literally just a better version of what you've known and loved for the past 8 years. And for a lot of people, that's enough. It's familiar, it's comfortable, and it plays the games they want to play. But, and there's always a but, let's talk about the price. At $449 US for the base model and $499 for the one that comes with Mario Kart World, the Switch 2 is a premium proposition. On top of that, Nintendo has announced that Switch 2 games will be sold at $80, which is quite the price premium for sure, and we all know that Nintendo games almost never go on sale. I'm not going to go too much into this since it kind of warrants a video by itself, but yes, prices of video games going up is a bummer. But back in 2006, when the standard for new games went up to $60, we didn't have tons of always free games like Fortnite and League of Legends, and we didn't have the multitude of cheap and amazing indie titles like Stardew Valley. The in-between AA games didn't exist either, like Helldivers and Palworld. Basically every game was $60, which, if we account for inflation, is more like $94 in 2025. At the end of the day, gamers play much more games now than they ever have, and unless you are buying a brand new AAA game every weekend, I would bet my money that you're spending less overall on video games than you ever have as well. This is not me taking Nintendo's side, this is just me being real. The Switch 2 is a confident step forward for Nintendo. It doesn't throw away what made the Switch special, it builds on it. You're getting better visuals, smoother performance, smarter features, and some strong third-party support without losing that magical hybrid design. For existing OLED users, the jump is tempting, but maybe not essential yet unless you want top-tier performance in future titles. There are a few fun-looking games slated for release soon, so keep an eye out and see if any of them would tempt you to pick one up when you're ready. For everyone else, this is the best Switch yet, and honestly, maybe my favorite Nintendo console since the Nintendo 64. Thanks to all the channel members for supporting the channel. Maddie HP, Gaming Nomad, and Mr. C&D. And be sure to click the join button below if you'd like a shout out at the end of every video. My name is Jason. Thanks for watching.